The three trials of the heart. In a faraway kingdom, where time seemed to move slower and the seasons stretched into eternity, there was a hidden temple known as the Temple of the Heart. It was said that anyone who passed through its trials would unlock the secrets of the human spirit, how to persevere through hardship, how to trust in oneself, and how to find inner peace. Many sought the temple, but few ever reached its sacred halls. One day, three travelers, a sailor named Kiran, a poet named Amara, and a stonecutter named Doran, each set out to find the temple, each drawn by a different need but bound by a shared longing for something more. Though their paths were separate, their journeys would intertwine, like the three strands of a helix, guiding them toward a deeper understanding of the heart's true strength. The first trial began on the open sea, where Kiran, a sailor who had crossed many oceans, now faced the most dangerous voyage of his life. Though he was brave and experienced, Kiran carried a heavy burden. He had recently lost his ship and crew to a violent storm, and ever since, doubt had filled his heart. Could he still be the captain he once was? Was he worthy of the sea? As Kiran sailed toward the temple, another storm loomed on the horizon. The winds picked up, and the waves rose like mountains, threatening to capsize his small boat. Fear gripped him, and the memory of his lost crew resurfaced. He felt paralyzed, unable to steer the ship through the storm. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the clouds, an image of Kiran, but older and weighed down by sorrow. "You cannot outrun the storm, Kiran," the figure said. "It's not the sea that challenges you, it's your own doubt. Until you believe in yourself again, you will never make it through the storm." Kiran stared at the figure, the truth of the words sinking in. He realized that the real battle wasn't against the storm, it was within him. His doubt had weakened his spirit, not his skills. With this new understanding, Kiran gripped the helm and steered into the heart of the storm, trusting in his abilities, even as the winds howled around him. As he navigated through the chaos, the storm began to clear, and Kiran emerged on the other side, his confidence restored. He understood now that true perseverance was not about avoiding the storm, but about trusting in his strength to sail through it. The second trial took place in a vast and silent desert, where Amara, a poet known for her eloquent words, wandered in search of inspiration. But for months, her heart had been heavy, her mind filled with doubts. The words that once flowed from her soul had dried up, leaving her feeling empty. She had come to the desert hoping to find her voice again, but all she found was silence. As Amara journeyed deeper into the desert, the heat pressed down on her, and the endless sands stretched before her like a blank page. She cried out to the sky, but no answer came. The silence seemed to mock her, and she began to wonder if her gift had been lost forever. Suddenly, a shadow appeared beside her, an image of herself, but with her mouth sewn shut. "You seek words, Amara," the shadow said. "But your heart is full of doubt. You fear that your voice is gone, but it is not the desert that has taken it, it is your own silence. Until you listen to your heart, your words will remain buried." Amara fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the weight of the truth. She realized that the silence wasn't outside of her, it was within. She had been listening to her doubts, not her heart. Taking a deep breath, Amara closed her eyes and let go of her fear. In the quiet of the desert, she began to hear the faint whispers of her soul, her voice, waiting to be heard. As the sun set, Amara opened her eyes, and the words flowed once more, clear and true. She understood now that true self-belief wasn't about always having the right words, but about trusting in the quiet spaces where the heart speaks. The third trial took place in a mountain valley, where Doran, a stonecutter, labored day and night. He was known for his strength and skill, carving great statues and monuments, but despite his accomplishments, Doran was filled with unrest. No matter how much he worked, it never seemed to be enough. The weight of his expectations bore down on him, and he felt trapped by his own ambition. As Doran climbed the mountain, he carried a heavy stone on his back, a stone he had vowed to carve into his greatest masterpiece. But as he ascended, the stone grew heavier, and his body ached from the strain. Still, he pressed on, determined to reach the summit. Halfway up the mountain, Doran collapsed, unable to carry the stone any further. As he lay there, exhausted, a figure appeared beside him, an image of himself, but old and hunched under the weight of countless stones. "You carry this burden, Doran," the figure said. "But it is not the stone that weighs you down, it is your own expectation. Until you let go of the need to be perfect, you will never find peace." Doran looked at the stone and realized that it was not his work that was the burden, it was his relentless drive for perfection. He had been striving for something unreachable, never allowing himself to rest, never accepting his own limits. With a deep breath, Doran let go of the stone. The weight lifted from his shoulders, and he felt lighter than he had in years. He understood now that true peace didn't come from achieving perfection, but from accepting that he didn't need to be perfect to find worth in his work. At last, the three travelers reached the Temple of the Heart, standing at the mountain's peak, overlooking the endless desert and the stormy sea. Inside the temple, they found a single, glowing crystal, pulsing with light. As they each touched the crystal, their journeys converged, and they realized the truth they had been seeking. Kiran spoke first. "I have learned that perseverance is not about never failing, but about trusting in my strength, even in the face of doubt." Amara nodded. "I have learned that self-belief is not about always having the answers, but about listening to my heart, even in the silence." Doran smiled. "And I have learned that peace is not about reaching perfection, but about letting go of the burdens we place upon ourselves." As the crystal's light grew brighter, the temple spoke, though no words were needed. The message was clear: the heart's true strength lies not in perfection, certainty, or control, but in the courage to persevere, the belief in one's own worth, and the peace that comes from self-acceptance. The three travelers had each faced their deepest fears and doubts, and in doing so, they had discovered the strength of their hearts, stronger than the storm, deeper than the silence, and lighter than the heaviest stone. As the travelers left the temple, their paths intertwined, like the three strands of a helix, each one strengthened by the other. They returned to their lives, not as the same people who had begun the journey, but as those who had faced their deepest challenges and emerged with a new understanding. Kiran sailed the seas again, confident in his abilities. Amara found her voice and wrote poetry that touched the hearts of others. And Doran continued to carve stone, not for perfection, but for the joy of creation. Each had learned the same truth: the heart's greatest power is not found in external success, but in the inner journey toward courage, self-belief, and peace. And so, they lived, carrying the strength of the heart within them, knowing that whatever storms, silences, or burdens came their way, they would rise to meet them with grace. This story of Kiran, Amara, and Doran reminds us that the heart's true strength is not found in overcoming external challenges alone, but in facing the inner trials of doubt, fear, and expectation. Like the travelers, we all carry burdens and face storms in our lives. But by trusting in ourselves, listening to our hearts, and letting go of perfection, we can find the strength to persevere, to believe in our own worth, and to find peace within.